Hi again. The other day I was chatting with a fellow collector and we were talking about pump action rifles, and he seemed to think that the Remington 760, which we've looked at before on videos, was the first and only Remington rifle. And you know how it is when you're chatting with people about almost anything. They have their opinions, and their opinions are always welcome and good by definition. So I didn't disagree too strongly, but I knew that Remington had made a pump action before the 760 because it was sitting in my vault, and but I didn't say too much about that. But I thought I should make a video. Anyway, this Remington 760 is in 280 Remington, and in case you haven't watched all the videos on my channel, which would be completely understandable, I view the 760 as one of those secrets of American gun making. These are undervalued rifles. It may not have the fanciest stock, but in terms of design and use, the 760 was and is a fantastic rifle. The action is always so slick, and it's a near perfect design. Whenever I take them out of the vault, I mean, it's just terrific. I don't really care about dry firing, but yeah, it's just a great rifle. So I've got this one in 280, and then I've got another one in 257 Roberts, and I think somewhere a 30-06. But really, this video is not about the 760, except for my friend. So what I wanted to say is, here's a Remington Model 14 pump action rifle. Now this is not in 280. This particular rifle is in 25 Remington, and I invite you to punch in 25 Remington and 30 Remington and 35 Remington. People seem to remember the 35 probably because you don't have to remember them. They're still being made. But Remington made a whole line of cartridges, rimless cartridges, to compete with Winchester. And this rifle is in 25, which is actually my favorite round in this line of rifles. It's a very mild cartridge, but it can do whatever you need it to do within its range, and assuming that you do your part, which is an assumption you have to make with anything you do. Anyhow, I thought I should show it to you. First of all, I bought this rifle with a stock that was completely destroyed. The buttstock was fractured every which way. I asked the owner what happened, and a horse had stepped on the buttstock, so it was completely broken. And I did the usual thing, you try to resurrect these things. And I put up acrylic glass and pins, and I put a whole bunch of hours into it, and it ended up looking like worse than after the horse stepped on it. So then I thought, I have to do something else. I couldn't find a replacement stock. They're probably out there somewhere, but I get impatient sometimes, and so I thought, well, I'll just go into my stock vault, and I took this out. Now this is from a BAR, like a Browning automatic rifle, not the military rifle, the sporting rifle. And I guess it's a Browning butt plate on there just as evidence. But for you who own a BAR, you'll recognize the stock profile. And this has happened to me many times, that I have to adapt a stock from one rifle to another. So I adapted the BAR stock to this Remington 14. The drop-it comb is a little bit high for the iron sights, and I knew that when I started work on it. But I didn't mind, because I'll put I had a scope on this just before filming. I took the scope off so you could get a clear look at the action. This is a typical wonderful American rifle, purpose designed by John Pedersen, and I'll flip it around. Everything is steel and walnut. You'll notice that the forend moves the tubular magazine. The forend doesn't slide over the magazine as it might on other pump actions, especially pump action shotguns. And if you're thinking ahead, these cartridges have pointed bullets. So loading the cartridges is accomplished here. You just feed them in. So if we load a bunch of cartridges with pointed bullets, logic tells us the pointed bullet's going to be sitting on the primer of the cartridge in front. Then when there's recoil, presumably the primer will be ignited by the bullet of the cartridge behind. So what Remington did, or John Pedersen did, was really smart. See these spiral shapes on the tube? When you load this with cartridges, they're sitting in here one behind the other, but they're tilted. Each one is slightly tilted. I should have put a line of cartridges on the table. I thought of doing it, but I think everybody out there can picture what they're up to. So you can use pointed bullets in this tubular design, and they will never fire in sequence in the tube because of recoil. The tip of the bullet is off the primer in front. I think that's a reason to own this gun on its own. It's so unique. I can't tell you how smooth this is. Well, it's smoother than this one, and the 760 is really smooth. And in 25 Remington, there's no recoil. The 25 and 30 Remington cartridges, I guess they're not made, or maybe they make them once in a while. Anyway, I still find them at gun shows. And I was looking at them the other day, and I noticed that I thought they must be similar to the 6.8 SPC. And then I researched it a bit, and that's the base cartridge for the 6.8. So I'll have to look into that, and I don't know whether it'll mean that I can somehow adapt the 6.8 to fit the 25. It looks too short to me. Anyway, if this were not a replacement stock, it would be a walnut stock anyway. And the action is all steel. You undo this screw, and I've mentioned to you before, if you see this kind of screw that looks like a coin screw, you just take this off, and it's a takedown rifle. In terms of jamming, well, it's about impossible to get this thing to jam. They usually did a neat thing and put kind of an inset cartridge head in the receiver. So this one's 25 Remington, but you'll usually see 30 Remington, 35 Remington. And like I said, this is my favorite just because it's a light rifle. It shoots very quickly, and I like the no recoil feature of the 25 Remington, which is similar to the 25-35 Winchester, except the Winchester was a rimmed round. They're not in any way interchangeable, but just a beautifully made firearm, and another example of wonderful design by John Pedersen, and a wonderful example of what the American firearms industry can accomplish. It's just so well made, and I'm sure they transitioned to the 760. Well, it has the removable magazine that everybody wants these days, and this came out in the 50s. I think these came out in the 30s, but it's easy enough to check those dates. But the main purpose here is to show you the rifle, because they just don't show up, and a lot of people, like I said at the beginning, they don't even know they existed. So this is the 14, and then after this one came the Model 141, and then came the 760, and then there are different variations of this now that are being made to this date. So that's about it in terms of details and everything else, and I'll just close off with the usual suggestion that these Model 14s and 141s may seem like routine firearms, and they're definitely unremarkable on a table at a gun show. But if you buy them these days at minimal expense, you'll really have something worth owning. And I'm pretty sure that so long as people keep being interested in guns and studying them, they're definitely not going to go down in value. And to unlock the action, you depress a button on the bolt right there. That's the release. Kind of interesting. And then, like I said before, that's how you load them there. So, simple video, Remington Model 14. It does exist. The 760 wasn't the first pump action from Remington. and it's as excellent a rifle as the 760 in my humble opinion. So that's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.